Story 1. I never believed the rumors about the old corporate building on the edge of town, until one fateful night shattered all certainty. The building had long been abandoned, its broken windows and peeling paint hinting at a scandal buried deep in its history. But what I discovered that night went far beyond corporate corruption. Driven by a dare and a hunger for answers, I slipped through a gap in the chain-link fence on a stormy evening. The oppressive darkness and the acrid scent of decay welcomed me as I crossed the threshold. Inside, the lobby resembled a time capsule: overturned furniture, faded photographs of long-gone executives, and scattered shards of glass that crunched under my every cautious step. As I ventured deeper into the building, my flashlight revealed eerie symbols etched into walls and floors, symbols I later learned were associated with occult rituals. The corridors seemed to whisper secrets of a hidden society that once held sway in these halls. My curiosity pushed me forward until I reached a conference room locked by time and neglect. Forcing the creaky door open, I was met with a sight that sent shivers down my spine. In the center of the room stood a makeshift altar, stained with dried blood, surrounded by candles that cast flickering, hellish shadows. Scattered across the long table were documents and relics, old ledgers with cryptic notes, photographs of people whose eyes betrayed madness, and strange objects that defied logical explanation. In the midst of the chaos lay a scorched parchment, its edges singed as if from a hasty, violent departure. Before I could fully grasp the sinister tableau, a low murmur and the sound of shuffling footsteps echoed from the far side of the room. I peered into the darkness to see several figures, cloaked and hooded, gathering around the altar. They began to chant in a language that resonated with a chilling intensity. Their voices, layered and deliberate, wove through the stale air as they performed an occult ritual. The air grew thick with the metallic tang of blood as one of the figures raised a ceremonial dagger, its blade catching the light as it hovered over a ritual bowl. Frozen in place, I realized I had stumbled upon a clandestine gathering. The cultists, far from supernatural phantoms, were real people, driven by fanaticism, greed, and a desperate need to resurrect a long-forgotten power. Their eyes, dark and unblinking beneath shadowed hoods, locked onto mine as if they had sensed my presence. A surge of adrenaline shot through me. I knew I had to escape before I became entangled in their dangerous game. I backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound, but one misstep sent a metal chair clattering to the floor. In an instant, the chanting halted and every head turned in unison. The leader of the group, his face partially obscured yet unmistakably seething with anger, snarled, "You shouldn't be here." With that, he lunged toward me. Heart pounding, I bolted for the door, my footsteps echoing like a death march through the empty halls. Behind me, I could hear the cultists' enraged shouts, their voices melding into a cacophony of wrath as they pursued me. I dashed down a narrow service corridor, my only hope lying in the labyrinthine layout of the decaying building. Every creak and groan of the structure intensified my terror as I navigated past rooms filled with remnants of their dark practices. At last, I burst out into the stormy night, rain pelting my face and masking my frantic breaths. I didn't stop running until I reached the safety of a crowded street, where a passing taxi became my temporary sanctuary. As I fumbled for my phone to call the police, I glanced back at the looming silhouette of the building, its broken facade now a symbol of the unspeakable horrors it concealed. Later, the authorities confirmed that the building had been a covert meeting place for a cult obsessed with resurrecting ancient, forbidden rites. The blood ritual I witnessed was just one chapter in a series of violent, secretive ceremonies that had been carried out within those walls. Though the investigation is still ongoing, I survived that night by the narrowest of margins, a reminder that sometimes, the darkness we uncover is all too real. If you found this story as unnerving as I did, please like, subscribe, and comment below with your country if you've ever come face to face with the inexplicable. Story 2. I set out on what I thought would be an adventurous urban exploration one humid summer night, drawn by whispers of an abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts. The place had a notorious reputation among local thrill-seekers, once a bustling industrial hub, now a decaying monument to forgotten labor. Despite my friend's dire warnings, I craved the thrill of uncovering its secrets. The exterior was intimidating. High, rusted chain-link fences, barred windows like empty eyes, and graffiti that told tales of neglect and despair. Slipping through a loose section of the fence, a mix of excitement and dread surged through me as I stepped into the vast, dark space. My flashlight's beam cut through the shadows, revealing crumbling support beams, scattered debris, and an eerie silence that magnified every whisper of sound. Wandering deeper into the labyrinth of dilapidated rooms, I noticed subtle signs that the warehouse wasn't as abandoned as it appeared. Faint tire tracks in the dust, a discarded cell phone on a rusted crate, and a shattered mug with a phone number scribbled on it hinted at recent, and likely illicit, activity. My skin crawled as I realized I had stumbled upon evidence of dangerous, underground dealings. Suddenly, muffled voices echoed through the corridors. I pressed myself against a cold concrete wall, my heart thundering as I listened to footsteps approach. A group of men, faces hidden beneath dark hoods, gathered in a shadowed corner. They exchanged hushed, urgent words as they checked over large duffel bags, their conversation laced with threats. I knew in that chilling moment that I was in the wrong place at the worst possible time. Panic overtook me. I retraced my steps, but the maze-like interior twisted my sense of direction. The sound of heavy boots closed in, each thud a countdown to danger. In a desperate bid for survival, I sank to the ground behind a stack of old crates, pulling out my phone with trembling hands. I whispered my location to 911, barely daring to hope for rescue. Time seemed to stretch as I crouched in darkness, every moment charged with terror. Then, with a surge of determination, I mustered the courage to crawl toward a side exit that I had spotted earlier. My hands scraped against rough concrete as I burst through a broken door into the cool, forgiving night. Outside, I didn't pause for a second. I ran until the distant wail of sirens filled the air and the flashing lights of police vehicles appeared in my rearview mirror. The warehouse erupted in chaos as law enforcement swarmed in, apprehending the dangerous group and sealing off the area. Though the terror of that night still haunts me, I survived, thanks to a mix of quick thinking and a refusal to give in to fear. I left that place forever changed, with a newfound respect for caution and the realization that sometimes, the deadliest dangers are the ones hidden in plain sight. Story 3. It started as a dare among friends, a challenge to spend one night inside the abandoned school on the edge of town. The building, once a vibrant hub of learning, had been shuttered for decades after scandals and budget cuts reduced it to crumbling decay. Locals whispered about vandalism and illicit activities, but nothing prepared me for the nightmare that would unfold within its cold, echoing halls. I entered just after dusk, armed with only a flashlight and an inflated sense of bravado. The corridors were long and silent, the floors littered with broken glass and remnants of what once was. Faded murals and peeling lockers stood as ghostly reminders of the school's former life. Every step I took echoed ominously, as if heralding the presence of something, or someone, lurking in the shadows. In one cavernous classroom, I discovered signs of recent disturbance: overturned desks, shattered glass, and a scattering of personal items that had been hastily abandoned. The stale smell of smoke and a palpable aura of fear filled the room, making it clear that I wasn't the first to intrude upon these haunted halls. Determined to uncover the truth behind the rumors, I ventured deeper into the building. Without warning, I heard the slow, deliberate shuffle of footsteps trailing mine. My pulse spiked as I peered down a narrow corridor and caught sight of a figure at its far end, a man with a battered cap and eyes burning with a wild intensity. His movements were erratic, and as our eyes locked, I understood he wasn't here by chance. With a sudden creak of the old floorboards beneath me, the man spun toward me, his intent unmistakable. Panic surged as I realized I was trapped in a deadly game of cat and mouse. I bolted down the hallway, the man's heavy steps echoing like a death march behind me. My only thought was to escape this labyrinth of decay. I raced through a series of darkened corridors, each turn a desperate gamble, until I burst out into an overgrown courtyard. The fresh night air hit me like a lifeline. I didn't stop until I reached a busy street, where I flagged down a passing car. With trembling hands, I dialed the police, explaining my harrowing ordeal. Later that night, officers combed through the building and apprehended a local troublemaker who had been using the abandoned school as a hideout for criminal activities, a man whose anger and isolation had driven him to terrorize anyone who dared intrude. Though that night left me shaken to the core, I survived, forever marked by the raw, brutal reality of human malice in abandoned places. Every time I see a shuttered building, I remember the forgotten school and the narrow escape that taught me the value of vigilance and the strength of the human will to survive.